The accusations started at 3:47 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon at the Miller family reunion. I was sitting at a picnic table in Golden Gate Park, eating potato salad and trying to be invisible, when my father stood up to make a speech. "I want to thank everyone for coming today," Dad said, raising his beer. "Family is everything. We support each other. We help each other. We're there for each other." He paused and I felt his eyes land on me. "Well, most of us are." Aunt Patricia picked up the thread. "Some people in this family understand the meaning of generosity, of giving back. And some people," Uncle Mike added, looking directly at me, "only think about themselves." My mother stood. "I'm just going to say it. Our daughter Natalie has never helped anyone in this family. Not once. She's selfish through and through." 43 relatives turned to stare at me. "When your cousin Jenny needed help with rent, where was Natalie?" Mom continued. "When Uncle Mike's business needed a loan, where was Natalie? When your grandmother needed someone to help with her medical bills, where was Natalie?" "Nowhere," Dad finished. "Because Natalie doesn't care about family. She only cares about herself." I set down my potato salad. Said nothing. "A complete disappointment," Mom added, her voice breaking dramatically. "We raised her better than this. I could have defended myself. Could have explained. Could have told them the truth about where my money had actually been going. Instead, I pulled out my phone and texted my private investigator. Me, David, where are you? David, 5 minutes out. The FBI agents are with me. Me, perfect timing." I set my phone down and smiled slightly. My cousin Sarah leaned over. "Natalie, are you okay?" "I'm perfect." "They're being really harsh. They're being honest about how they feel. I appreciate honesty. But you're not selfish. You helped me with." "Sarah," I said quietly. "Watch what happens next." For minutes later, a man in a suit walked into the park reunion area. Behind him, 3 FBI agents in windbreakers that said, "FBI," in large yellow letters. The reunion went quiet. David Martinez, the private investigator I'd hired 3 months ago, walked directly to my table. "Ms. Miller." "That's me. I'm David Martinez, private investigator." We spoke on the phone. "I have the final report on the financial fraud investigation you commissioned." Every head turned. "Fraud?" Dad said. "What fraud?" David opened his briefcase. "Ms. Miller hired me 3 months ago to investigate irregularities in her credit report. What I found was extensive identity theft and financial fraud." He pulled out a thick folder. "Over the past 7 years, someone has opened 23 credit cards in Ms. Miller's name. Total fraudulent charges, $267,000. The FBI agents stepped forward. One of them, a woman in her 40s, held up a badge. "I'm Special Agent Carol Rodriguez, FBI Financial Crimes Division. We've been working with Mr. Martinez on this case. Ms. Miller, we have warrants to execute today." Mom's face went pale. "Warrants? For what?" Agent Rodriguez looked at her notes. "For the arrest of Jenny Miller, Patricia Miller, and Michael Miller on charges of identity theft, credit card fraud, and wire fraud." The park went completely silent. My cousin Jenny stood up. "That's ridiculous." "I didn't." "Jenny Miller," Agent Rodriguez continued, "you opened 11 credit cards using your cousin Natalie Miller's identity between 2019 and 2024. Total charges, $89,000. The cards were delivered to your address. You made charges at stores near your residence. Your digital footprint is extensive." Jenny's face crumbled. "Natalie, I can explain." "Aunt Patricia," the agent continued, "you opened 7 credit cards in Natalie Miller's name between 2020 and 2024. Total charges, $112,000. You used these cards to finance your son's wedding, your kitchen renovation, and a trip to Europe." Aunt Patricia grabbed the table. "I was going to pay it back." "Uncle Mike, 5 credit cards, $66,000 in charges. Primarily business expenses for your failed restaurant venture." Uncle Mike was shaking. "Natalie, you have so much money. I didn't think you'd miss it." I finally spoke. "I don't have so much money. I'm a high school teacher. I make $68,000 a year. But you never help anyone." Dad protested. "You must have savings." I had $180,000 in savings. From 10 years of careful budgeting. It's gone now. Because I've been paying minimum payments on $267,000 worth of credit cards I didn't open, trying to avoid bankruptcy while I figured out who was committing fraud against me. David handed me a document. The investigation took 3 months. Credit card applications traced back to 3 addresses. Security footage from stores showed the card holders. Bank records showed the money flow. He turned to face my family. For 7 years, 3 members of this family systematically destroyed Natalie Miller's financial life, while calling her selfish for not giving them money. Agent Rodriguez stepped forward with handcuffs. Jennifer Miller, you're under arrest. No. Jenny screamed. Natalie, please. We're family. Patricia Miller, you're under arrest. Aunt Patricia started crying. I needed that money. My son deserved a nice wedding. Michael Miller, you're under arrest. Uncle Mike lunged toward me. You bitch. You're going to destroy this family. 2 agents grabbed him. As they were led away in handcuffs, my father found his voice. Natalie, what have you done? I protected myself, I said quietly. From the family that was robbing me blind while calling me selfish. The first credit card appeared 5 years into my teaching career. I was 29, finally had $50,000 saved, was thinking about buying a condo. I checked my credit score as part of the mortgage pre-approval process. Score. Credit score, 592. That couldn't be right. I'd never missed a payment. Never carried a balance. Never had any debt except student loans which I'd paid off 2 years earlier. I pulled my full credit report. There were 4 credit cards I'd never opened. Total balance, $47,000. I called the credit card companies. I didn't open these accounts. The applications were submitted online using your social security number, date of birth, and mother's maiden name. Someone stole my identity. You'll need to file a police report and a fraud claim with each company. I filed police reports. Filed fraud claims. Spent 6 months getting the cards closed and the debts removed from my report. A year later it happened again. 3 more cards. $38,000 in charges. Another year. For more cards. $52,000. Each time I filed reports. Filed claims. Got the debts removed. But it took months. My credit score tanked. I couldn't buy a condo. Couldn't get approved for a car loan. Was denied an apartment lease. Meanwhile, at family gatherings, the accusations started. Natalie never helps anyone. She's so selfish with her money. Teachers make good money and she acts like she's broke. I tried to explain once. Christmas dinner 3 years ago. Someone keeps opening credit cards in my name, I'd said. I've been dealing with identity theft for years. That's terrible. Mom had said. Do you know who's doing it? Not yet. But it has to be someone with access to my personal information. Well, it's not anyone in this family. Dad had snapped. We'd never do that. I didn't say it was family. You implied it. I just said someone with access to my information. Uncle Mike had laughed. You probably wrote your social security number on some sketchy website. This is why young people get scammed. I'd stopped mentioning it after that. But the cards kept appearing. By year 6 my credit was destroyed. I'd spent $30,000 of my own money paying minimums on fraudulent debts while waiting for investigations to clear. My savings were gone. My credit score was 580. I was living paycheck to paycheck, unable to buy a home or even rent a nice apartment. And at every family gathering I was called selfish for not lending money to relatives who asked, "Can you help with Jenny's rent? Can you loan Uncle Mike money for his business? Can you contribute to Grandma's medical bills?" I can't. I'm dealing with financial issues. Selfish. Disappointing. We raced you better than this. 6 months ago I'd had enough. I hired David Martinez, a private investigator who specialized in identity theft. I want to know who's doing this to me. I don't care what it costs. This kind of investigation typically runs $15,000 to $25,000, he'd said. Fine. Find them. Took 3 months. But David found everything. The thing people don't understand about identity theft. It's not just about the money. It's about the time. Each fraudulent card required hours on the phone. Filling out forms. Filing police reports. disputing charges, providing documentation. I'd spent literally hundreds of hours over 7 years fighting fraud while working full-time as a teacher. Teaching isn't a 9 to 5 job. It's 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., plus evening grading, plus weekend lesson planning. Add an hour's fighting fraud each week and I had no life. No dating. No hobbies. No social life. Just work and fraud prevention. Meanwhile, my family lived well. Jenny got married, took vacations, posted constantly on Instagram about her blessed life. Aunt Patricia renovated her entire house. Uncle Mike opened and closed 3 restaurants. All on my credit. All while calling me selfish. David's investigation revealed the pattern. Jenny had accessed my mail when she briefly lived with me during her divorce. She'd taken bank statements, credit card offers, tax documents. Everything she needed to apply for credit in my name. She'd recruited Aunt Patricia and Uncle Mike when they had financial problems. Natalie won't help us, so we'll help ourselves. They'd been coordinating. Taking turns opening cards so the pattern wasn't obvious. Using my information like it was communal property. And the entire family had watched me struggle while judging me for not helping them more. 2 weeks before the reunion, David called with his final report. Natalie, I have everything. Names, dates, amounts, documentation. It's airtight. Tell me. He'd walked me through it all. 23 credit cards. $267,000 in fraud. 7 years of systematic theft by 3 family members. What do you want to do with this information? I want them arrested. Are you sure? They're family. They're criminals. They destroyed my financial life and called me selfish while doing it. The FBI will need to be involved. Wire fraud, identity theft. These are federal crimes. Good. Call them. Natalie, your family is going to hate you. They already hate me. They just disguise it as disappointment. David was quiet for a moment. When do you want this to happen? The family reunion is in 2 weeks. Can you have everything ready by then? You want me to bring FBI agents to a family reunion? I want them arrested in front of everyone who spent 7 years calling me selfish. That's cold. That's justice. The 2 weeks before the reunion, I prepared carefully. First, I met with Special Agent Carol Rodriguez and her team. They reviewed David's evidence. This is excellent investigative work, she said. Clear pattern of fraud. Multiple perpetrators. Over $250,000. These are serious charges. What happens to them? If convicted, they're looking at 5 to 10 years each for identity theft and wire fraud. Plus restitution. Restitution. They'll have to pay you back. All of it. I just want them to stop. And I want everyone to know what they did. Public arrest at a family gathering will certainly accomplish that. Good. Second, I documented everything. Printed copies of David's report. Made a timeline of every fraudulent card. Calculated the total damage. $267,000 in fraudulent charges, plus $30,000 of my own money spent on minimum payments, plus approximately 800 hours of my time dealing with fraud. Third, I prepared myself emotionally. This was going to destroy family relationships. My parents would be devastated. My other relatives would be forced to choose sides. But I was done being the villain in a story where I was actually the victim. The night before the reunion, my sister called. Natalie, are you coming tomorrow? Yes. Listen, Mom and Dad are pretty upset with you. About not helping Jenny with her rent last month. I'm aware. Can you just, I don't know, apologize? Make peace? They're going to bring it up. Let them. You're being stubborn. I'm being honest. It's the same thing. We'll see. After Jenny, Patricia, and Mike were led away in handcuffs, the park remained silent. 40 relatives stared at me. Some in shock. Some in anger. Some in what might have been shame. David Martinez cleared his throat. For those interested, I have copies of the investigative report here. It documents 7 years of systematic financial fraud by 3 family members against Natalie Miller. My father found his voice. You had your own family members arrested? I had 3 criminals arrested. They happen to be related to me. They're your cousin, your aunt, your uncle. They opened 23 credit cards in my name. They stole $267,000. They destroyed my credit for 7 years. While you all called me selfish. Mom was crying. How could you do this? How could I report crimes? How could I protect myself? How could I stop letting family members rob me while the rest of you judged me for not giving them more money? We didn't know. Dad protested. You didn't ask. I told you years ago I was dealing with identity theft. You dismissed it. Aunt Susan, Patricia's sister, stepped forward. Natalie, there has to be another way. They're going to prison. They committed federal crimes. Can't you drop the charges? Please. No. Why not? Because for 7 years I've been paying for Jenny's lifestyle, Patricia's home renovation and Mike's failed businesses. While working 60-hour weeks as a teacher. While being told I'm selfish for not helping more. I'm done. My cousin Tom, Jenny's brother, was furious. You're destroying this family. Your sister destroyed my financial life. I'm just holding her accountable. She has kids. What are they supposed to do while she's in prison? What was I supposed to do while she was committing fraud? While maxing out credit cards in my name? While ruining my credit so I couldn't buy a home or even rent a decent apartment? You don't have kids. She does. That's not a justification for federal crimes, Tom. David stepped in. If I may. The evidence shows Ms. Jenny Miller opened her first fraudulent credit card in Natalie's name 2 months before her wedding. She used it to pay for her honeymoon. She then continued opening cards to fund her lifestyle while knowing it was destroying her cousin's credit. Patricia Miller renovated her kitchen using fraudulent credit. Took a European vacation. Paid for her son's wedding. All while Natalie worked a second job tutoring to pay minimums on debts she didn't create. Michael Miller opened 5 cards in 18 months to fund restaurant ventures that failed. When they failed, he abandoned the debt that was attached to Natalie's name, destroying her credit score to 580. He looked around the reunion. These weren't mistakes. This was calculated, systematic fraud over 7 years by 3 people who had access to family information. My mother was shaking her head. I don't believe this. There has to be an explanation. There is an explanation, I said. They're thieves. And you all enabled them by calling me selfish when I couldn't give them money, because they'd already stolen everything I had. Grandma Rose spoke up. She was 92 and sharp as ever. Natalie, did you ever ask them for help? No. Why not? Because I was ashamed. Because I thought I'd failed somehow. Because every time I mentioned the identity theft, someone in this family told me it was my fault for being careless. I'm sorry, Grandma said quietly. I'm sorry we didn't listen. Thank you. Agent Rodriguez stepped forward. Ms. Miller, do you have anything else to add? Just one thing. I stood up and addressed the reunion. For 7 years you've all watched me struggle. You've judged me for not helping relatives financially. You've called me selfish, disappointing, cold. Not once did anyone ask if I was okay, if I needed help, if something was wrong. You just assumed I was the problem. Now you know the truth. The problem was never me. The problem was 3 criminals who stole from family and a family that chose not to see it. I picked up my bag. I'm leaving now. David has copies of the report if anyone wants to understand what actually happened. The FBI will be in touch if they need statements from witnesses. Natalie, wait. My sister grabbed my arm. Where will you go? Home. To my apartment that I could barely afford because my credit was destroyed. To start rebuilding my life now that the fraud has stopped. What about the family? What about them? They chose to believe I was selfish rather than investigate why I was struggling. That's on them. I walked toward the park exit. Behind me I heard arguing, crying, confusion. I kept walking. The first call came 20 minutes later. Natalie, we need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. You can't just destroy this family. I didn't destroy it. Jenny, Patricia and Mike did. I just exposed it. Can't you drop the charges? No. Why not? Because they committed federal crimes. Because they stole $267,000. Because they destroyed 7 years of my life. Because they need to face consequences. They're family. Family doesn't commit identity theft, Dad. Criminals do. He hung up. Mom called next. Natalie, please. Patricia is my sister. She made a mistake. 23 credit cards over 7 years isn't a mistake. It's a pattern. She was desperate. So was I. But I didn't commit crimes. How can you be so cold? How can you defend someone who stole from your daughter? She hung up. The text started pouring in. Cousin Tom, you're dead to this family. Aunt Susan, I hope you're happy ruining lives. Uncle Dave, we always knew you were selfish. Now we know you're vindictive too. But there were other messages too. My sister Melissa, I'm sorry I didn't believe you. About the identity theft. I should have listened. Cousin Sarah, thank you for being brave. What they did was wrong. Grandma Rose, come visit me tomorrow. We should talk. That night I sat in my apartment and cried. Not from regret, from relief. For 7 years I'd been drowning. Working 2 jobs, fighting fraud, watching my savings evaporate, being called selfish by people who were literally robbing me. Now it was over. The FBI had the perpetrators. The fraud would stop. I could start rebuilding. But the family? That was broken. Probably forever. And I realized, that was okay. The legal process took 18 months. Jenny pled guilty to 11 counts of identity theft. Sentenced to 4 years in federal prison, 3 years supervised release, and ordered to pay $89,000 in restitution plus interest. Patricia pled guilty to 7 counts. 3 years in prison, 3 years supervised release, $112,000 in restitution. Mike went to trial. Was convicted on all counts. 5 years in prison, 5 years supervised release, $66,000 in restitution. The restitution orders included payment plans. I'd get my money back eventually. Maybe over 10 years. Maybe 20. But I didn't care about the money anymore. I cared about the validation. The family split predictably. Half believed I'd done the right thing. Half believed I'd destroyed the family for revenge. My parents sided with the criminals. Stopped speaking to me. Told people I was vindictive and cruel. My sister Melissa sided with me. What they did was unconscionable. You had every right to prosecute. Grandma Rose called it the reckoning the family needed. I changed my phone number. Moved to a new apartment. Started the slow process of rebuilding my credit. 6 months after the arrests, the San Francisco Chronicle ran a story. Local teacher exposes $267,000 identity theft by family members. The article detailed everything. The 7 years of fraud. The family accusations. The reunion arrests. It went viral. The reporter asked, "Do you have any regrets?" I regret not investigating sooner. I could have stopped this years ago if I'd hired a private investigator earlier. What about the family relationships? I regret that my family chose to side with criminals instead of a victim. But I don't regret prosecuting. Identity theft is a serious crime. The fact that it was committed by relatives doesn't make it less serious. Your mother told us you were always selfish. That this is consistent with your character. My mother enabled 3 people to commit federal crimes against me while calling me selfish for not giving them money. Her opinion of my character is meaningless. That's harsh. That's honest. I spent 7 years being gaslit by people who were robbing me. I'm done being polite about it. The article ran with my teaching photo. Within days I received dozens of messages from other identity theft victims. Thank you for speaking out. I'm dealing with family fraud too. Seeing your story gave me courage to report it. You're not selfish. You're brave. 1 year after the arrests, I attended a fraud victims advocacy conference in Washington, D.C. I told my story to a room of 500 people. Identity theft by family members is underreported, I said. Because victims are pressured to protect their families instead of themselves. We're told reporting crimes makes us vindictive or cruel. But theft is theft. Fraud is fraud. A crime doesn't become less serious because the perpetrator is related to you. I lost 7 years of my life, $267,000 and my family relationships. But I gained something too. My dignity. My truth. My right to say, enough. The audience gave me a standing ovation. 2 years after the arrests I finally bought a condo. My credit score had recovered to 720. I'd saved another down payment. I was finally moving forward. My sister Melissa helped me move in. Mom asked about you, she said carefully. How is she? Devastated. Jenny's in prison. Patricia's in prison. Mike's in prison. Dad won't talk about it. The whole family is fractured. That's unfortunate. She wants to apologize. For what? For calling me selfish? For defending criminals? For choosing her sister over her daughter? All of it. I don't need her apology. I needed her support. 7 years ago. When it would have mattered. People make mistakes, Natalie. Mistakes are accidents. What Mom did was a choice. She chose to believe I was selfish rather than investigate why I was struggling. That wasn't a mistake. That was judgment. Can you ever forgive her? I don't know. Maybe. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I can forgive and still choose not to have a relationship. That's sad. What's sad is that it took $267,000 in fraud and 3 federal arrests for her to realize she was wrong about me. That's what's sad. We finished moving in silence. That night in my new condo, I sat on my couch and felt something I hadn't felt in 7 years. Peace. Not because I had my money back, I didn't, not really. Restitution payments were trickling in at $200 a month. Not because my family apologized, they hadn't, not meaningfully. But because I'd finally told the truth. And I'd chosen myself over people who'd spent years choosing everyone but me. That was enough. I got a letter from Jenny in prison. Dear Natalie, I've had 3 years to think about what I did. 3 years to understand the damage I caused. 3 years to realize I destroyed your life while calling you selfish. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know sorry doesn't give you back 7 years or $89,000 or your family relationships. But I'm sorry anyway. I told myself I'd pay you back. That it was temporary. That you wouldn't miss it because you were single with no kids and I had a family to support. I was wrong. I was a thief. And I deserved to be here. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I did to you. Jenny. I read the letter twice. Then I wrote back. Jenny. Thank you for the apology. I accept it. But accepting an apology doesn't erase consequences. You committed federal crimes. You destroyed my credit, my savings, and my trust in family. I hope prison has given you time to become a better person. I hope you use that growth to be a better mother when you get out. But we won't have a relationship. What you did can't be undone with an apology. I wish you well. From a distance. Natalie. I mailed it and moved on. Because forgiveness isn't reconciliation. You can forgive someone and still choose not to let them back into your life. You can acknowledge their growth and still protect yourself from future harm. You can wish them well and still walk away. And that's okay. Because at the end of the day I chose myself. Over family expectations. Over pressure to forgive. Over the narrative that victims should be gracious. I chose me. And I'd do it again. Every single time.